and you're going to see order details, orders, products, shippers, and suppliers, okay? Now, let's talk about this for just a moment. Some of these are what we call dimension tables, okay? Not dementia tables because I'm an old guy, all right? I understand that. Dimension tables because they're tables that cover or contain characteristics or attributes. When we perform what we call normalizing a database, we make sure that we have dimension tables that are only about one key dimension or variable that's important to us. Otherwise, we end up with very unwieldy and kind of kitchen sink tables. So let's look at this for a minute. These folks sell stuff, so they have categories of what they sell. Let's open that up. Okay. They're a garden company. Then they have customers. And this is all about their customers. Now, if I were going to say this is if I were normalizing this database, here's what I might do. I might have the customer names, then a table with customer addresses, and then a name with customer phone numbers, etc. I would assign a customer ID, as you see that they've got here. And the only quarrel I have with these people, what they've done here, is that they'd be far better off to use an auto number, because that way each time you add a customer, okay, you get an auto number. So I don't agree with this, but the whole idea is that a table should be like a paragraph. It should have one thought, have one thing, okay? But for intensive purposes, they've decided to have this thing with everything about customers in it we've got, okay? Then we come down here to the employees table and stuff like their birthday and when they were hired and all that business, their address. And then we come into, and let's look down here, let's look at products and open that up. Name, the unit price, blah, blah, blah. Then we have a thing called shippers. So far, everything that was revolved is something that has to do with some component or element of our business in terms of transactions. If you see that, what category, what type of product we sell, who's the customer, who are our employees who sold the stuff. Then we've moved down to the types of products. Then we've got shippers, okay? We've got suppliers. So we've got what we call dimension tables, okay? Now, we're going to move over here and we're going to take a look at a thing called a fact table. And let's look at that for just a minute. Click on the table called order details, okay? And you'll see that we have facts. A fact table typically is going to have data that I can add, supply, multiply, divide, etc. And you're going to look over here and you're going to see here's the order ID, here's the product ID, the unit price, the quantity. Did we give them a discount? Everybody with me there? Got it. This is a fact table. When we take a fact table and we put it together with a dimension table, we get what we call a production table. And we'll see that here in just a moment. Here's another fact table. In fact, I think this is our production table, and I clicked on open it up, and it is. Scoot the shutter back for a minute, and you'll see everything about this order. And we call it a production table because this is a record of transactions. These are sales that we've made. Okay? We can have internal transactions that might include, for example, Department A completes a component and sends it to Department D. We can have internal transaction tables like payroll, our payables for the month, our receivables table, etc. Then we will have external or transactional production tables where I'm dealing with somebody on the outside, and that's typically going to be sales on one end. On the other end, it's going to be supplies, vendors, etc. Okay? So I can go in and look at a company's tables. I have a pretty good idea of what's going on. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and scroll that back out there. And, well, let me go back here for a minute because I want to talk about just briefly about handling these. The order details, okay? These are okay, but when I look at the orders themselves, this is stuff that I would want to put into an Excel sheet or some kind of analytical engine or analytical tool. Why? Well, there's a lot of information here. Okay? I have all of these records or order numbers, and then I have all this data about the customers, and then I have what was bought, where it was shipped, etc. And so I have a lot of data here, but if I want to get some information, I'm probably going to need to take this and put it into an Excel sheet or into a pivot table if I'm working with an Access. Now, if I'm working with a commercial product like SAS Visual Analytics, Oracle, SAP, any of those kinds of products that are out there, that it will already do that for me on the level of my reporting level. How much of this should I see? Okay. And I'll have a dashboard that will allow me to pull up certain files of certain sets of data or tables based on my report level and in my security level. And then I'll be able to do some manipulation with those data. Okay? So when you hear people talk about data warehousing, data mining, extracting data, what we're talking about is we go into tables and we pull data from them, we extract data, then we summarize it statistically in some way or other, and then we provide visualization of that, a chart, a bar chart, a pie chart. We do maybe a linear, maybe a line graph. Whatever is going to tell us what it is we're trying to find out. We might even go so far as just to simply use conditional formatting. We might just simply sort and filter the data. We might put it into, like I said, a pivot table. Then we've got information, and then we can make decisions. Information is data designed for decision making. And here I've got lots of questions that I could ask myself. And if you've heard me talk about the notion of query discipline or report discipline, you could see there are many, many reports I could ask for here, and I would have a calendar of when I want particular reports run, etc. So I have that data coming in. Now, every now and then I'll have what we call serendipitous reports where I just say, oh, okay, I'm going to ask some crazy question. Let's just see. Now, there's a bigger picture here. When you hear people talk about big data, they're talking about data that don't necessarily fit or don't easily fit into tables and columns, rows and columns. Tweets, likes on Facebook, comments on Facebook, photos in Instagram, Yelp, locational data, etc. Okay? I think I might have showed you guys maybe one time before, maybe it was another class, but if you have a Google account, I'll just show you real quickly so I'm not redundant. We'll go over here and I'm going to go back up and I'm going to go to Google. Okay? Now I'm logged in on my Gmail. okay? So I'm going to look at my Google Apps, and I'm going to click Maps, okay? Now, my phone will tell you where I've been. My wife knows where I've been because my phone goes with me. So there's a really interesting article, I think it's in the New York Times, where they talk about how law enforcement agencies have been pressuring Google to let them use locational data to track bad people. So there's some privacy concerns here. It's one thing for me to say, okay, what did I do today? Well, okay, I went to work. See? Well, is there anything else I could get? Well, I can also go in there into that. I can drill down. Okay. I can get a satellite view. I can add a destination if I want, measure destinations. I can do that kind of thing. And I can also go in and I can pull my options down. Now I'm going to click on here and I'm going to click Timeline. And this is the application I'm talking about. The timeline will let me look at any given day where I've been. And the red dots, I'll put today. And I can say, okay, give me the raw data. And you'll see my timeline in terms of the day and the time I was at a particular place. Now, these are data that tell me about patterns, purchasing patterns, folks' movement, etc. And if I'm a bad person, they like to know where I'm at. Now, there's also a thing I can export this data to KML. The KML is the type of file where I will get every single inch of the way, and it will give me the time, and it will give me the exact coordinates, my GPS coordinates. Okay. Now, again, you guys will have to decide, is this useful? Is it because Android has my data. And when I bought my phone, and when I bought my phone coverage, guess what? If you look at all the fine print, when you sign up with a mobile supplier or with a phone company, they say that we have the right to sell your data. So if someone wants to, they sell my data. Okay? So someone's interested in someone fits my profile, well, they start looking for it. And being able to export this to KML and know every single step of the way where I am, well, it's something for everybody to, you folks will have to figure this out, okay? You can say I'm pretty straight arrow. You say, okay, well, let's look at his timeline. What did he do yesterday? Let's find out. Oh, okay. He was over at Chili's. He's at the bar at Chili's. I knew he was a drunken sot. Here he is again. He's over at the Italian place, probably sucking down wine. What did he do Saturday? What a boring person. He stayed at home. Friday, what happened? Uh-oh, he's at Dairy Queen. I met at my insurance company sees us and they send me an email say, Keith, are you eating fries again? Is your blood pressure too high? I guarantee you, before you're my age or by the time you hit my age, when you get into a car, that vehicle will be feeding data to your insurance company the minute you turn it on. And if they don't like what they see, they may notify you and say, we're going to have to take your insurance, or they will tailor your insurance to your driving habits. So if you're a little heavy on the foot, you'll get to pay a special speeding premium. And my hunch would be if you can't pass a sobriety test in that car, it won't start. It's just a matter of time before somebody says there's no reason to have all these people killed on the highways with drunken drivers if we just simply shut the car down and they can't drive. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea if they had them on commercial airliners, given the fact that about once a month I read about drunk pilots in Tokyo or New York pulled off. A passenger goes, I smelled something on his breath. Smart move. Amazing. So you can see what I've done, where I've been, etc. This will be something, and all of this is built on, this is a database. You say, oh, okay, let's do another layer. Here's a map. And all I'm doing is just adding, oh, pardon me, the satellite, excuse me. And there I am, the satellite. I'm just layering a satellite. It's a database. All right. And I'll close it off. So I think I made my point pretty well there as far as that goes. And again, we'd want to take this data and be able to do something with it to make some decisions. So this is a fairly good case in terms of looking at. Now I'm going to close all of these tables. And we're going to take a trip over here and look at them in terms of the database tools. Before we do this, let's go down here and note that we have queries. And we have something we haven't run into before, and this is called an update query. Let's take a look at that and go into the design view. And you'll notice if you look up here in the toolbar, the update has gone hot. And what that means is we're updating a table. You say, well, how do you know that? Well, I'm looking here. It says the unit price for the products table, and we're going to update it to unit price times 1.1. So I'm going to do a 10% price increase. Okay, what products or what categories? Well, I'm going to do a 10% increase on bulbs and cacti. You see that? About 90% of all queries, are select queries. Then we have those that are an update. So we update that whole table. Then we've got some forms down here, and let's look at this real quickly. We've got the categories form. And again, a form is designed for me just to be able to put data into the table. Okay. And then I've got the customer records form. And here I've added in a logo. I think maybe they have an icon. But on this customer records table, right click on it, and let's go down to the design view. Okay? Now you'll see the following parts. The form header, okay? Then you've got the detail, that's the data, all right? And then if you have a footer, there's a footer. Now if I right-click on like customer ID, I can right-click it and go to properties, and it will tell me all about the properties for that given component here. So if I don't, if I have the company logo, and if I wanted to say I want to put in a picture of my puppy or my family, or something like that, I could add it, say under the logo of the company will let me. Okay. And this is in a design mode with the lines and then all the dots, so you can get everything as exact as you want. That'll all be fixed up and created for you. Then we have a products form, a sub form. Now we're going to do a little more exploring in here, and we're going to click this off, and we'll close everything here. And we're going to go up here to the database tools. Everybody with me so far? Okay. Click on database tools. And then look at that thing there that says relationships. Click on that. Okay. This is what we call, this looks like what we call a star schema. You say, what do you mean? Well, you'll notice something. The junction of all of these ends up where? At the orders table. Okay? Everything feeds into the orders table because the orders table is the production table. Now, you'll notice something interesting about these. You'll see these little lines. Take your cursor and put on one of those lines and right-click it, and it'll say Edit Relationship, and click that. Got that, everybody? Everybody out there? Get to here. I clicked on Relationship, Database Tools, and then Relationships. I'll go back out. Database Tools, and then Relationships. Everybody there? Okay. Now, I'm going to come right here and notice again how these all feed in to this table, the orders table, which is the production table. This is a star schema because it looks like what? Looks like kind of a star. These are one of the schemas that we use or designs when we design a database. Now, take your cursor and put it up here on one of these lines and click Edit Relationship. Okay? Now, you're going to see it says Table Query Customers, Related Table Query Orders. Everybody see that? The one on the left is called the parent. The one on the right is called the child. Okay? Now, notice that we see in each of those tables customer ID. The reason that relational databases are so powerful is that I can take a field in one table and insert it in another table, that same field, okay? And I can link tables. And the more tables I link, the greater the pool of data I have, and the more I leverage the law of large numbers. If I'm going to go fishing for stingray, I'm going to the oceans. I'm not going to Lake Texoma. And if I want significant insights on my customers, significant insights on my transactions, say with my customers or with the people who supply me, if I want significant patterns of data on what's happening out in my industry, I'm going to use and tie together as many of these tables as I possibly can so I can start to extract data from them and look for patterns. I'm always looking for patterns. Now, I told this story earlier in the earlier section. I may have told this story before, okay? And so teach you a little bit as decision makers how you've got to understand and recognize patterns of data. For example, let's say I have a chart. The horizontal axis is time. The vertical axis is rate of return or interest. And on the left-hand side of that chart, everything is humped. And then there's a big hump, and then everything drops off as it moves on to the right. And let's say we're talking about the interest rate. This is what we call an inverted yield curve. You say, what does that mean? What it means is because you have everything piled over there because people are getting higher rates in the short run, it means they have no faith in the future. And when you see one of those, if it consistently occurs, it may augur a recession or a severe downturn in the market because people have no faith in the future. They want their money now. Now, we're looking at this and it says enforce referential integrity, which what it means is they have to match. Okay? Now look at the little bar there that says join type and click join type. You're going to see 3 kinds of joins. Now I'm about to say 2 words that will cause a shudder in your spines. It's called Venn diagrams. I know. Venn diagrams. Join property number 1 is a pure intersection between set A and set B, or these 2 tables. We only want where they match up in terms of customer ID. Okay? That would be an inner join. If we want a left outer join, that means we want everything in table A plus where table A and B intersect. And that's a strategic issue or an informational issue, just what you want. Now a right outer join would be everything in table B plus where A and B match up. Again, that depends upon the information that you want. Okay? Typically, we use inner joins because we want to tie these tables together. And as you see, I could keep adding dimension tables and feeding them into this orders table, adding it, and just keep going and going and going. The number of tables I can add, well, I'll show you an example of the power of this in its rawest form and most majestic form. I'm going to open this up for a sec. And I'm going to click on Google, and I'm going to search for, and it's already saying, yeah, I know, there's a lot of news about Notre Dame Cathedral. And who caused the fire? Look at this. In 1.82 seconds, I got 292 million results. And they gave me the good stuff first. With tables, we also have a process called indexing. And this is really the stuff of what we would have in a computer science course, a course called data structures. But certain data tend to congregate around or stick around certain things. For example, letters, the first names or last names or proper names tend to congregate around a certain set of letters. Certain kinds of numbers tend to congregate together in certain seasonal patterns. So the indexing allows us to do an incredibly fast search, okay? And again, the next step is, and that will be the best part for you, is that you will be able to take that data and marry it, and you'll be working with a product where the table is just, you don't even see it. You'll choose some variables, you'll choose some measures, and you'll put them together like we do in a pivot table, and it'll start to give you results. And then you'll be able also to visualize it, and look at it, etc. Now you hear people talk about big data, and I showed you that, for example, those locational data, etc. We're trying to design products. We have some out there programming, like our programming, that we can use to take data that don't fit naturally into a table, okay? And we take them so we can break them down and put them into a table, columns and rows, so we can analyze them more effectively. There are also there's some applications out there called NoSQL, that are designed to work with really strange sets of data, old data in old formats, data that aren't in tabular format. There's so much of that out there. Sensor data, pictures, and all of it is, it's almost like it's gold waiting to be mined. That's all I can tell you. And just think of YouTube videos, comments on the videos, how often they're visited, on and on. We haven't even begun to see the capabilities of what we can do with the data we produce. But I can tell you this, you're going to have, if you even have a desktop at that point, you'll probably have some type of device. You'll set it down and the surface will be there for you, and you'll pull up trillions of data, and you'll do some assessments of those data. You'll do some fishing around, run some queries, you'll extract some reports, and you'll get some insights. And for all of you, that will be signature recognition. This is one of the reasons I included a Stephen Few book and Show Me the Numbers, so that you start to understand pattern recognition is everything. Now, I'll tell this quick story. It's an interesting one, believe it or not. I went to a lecture. It was the guy who was in the Argentine Air Force who took out one of the British destroyers during the Falklands War. He had a French Mirage jet, which the British Harriers way outmatched. And the fleets have tremendous protection of their carriers, because that's the baby doll of all. I mean, that's the most powerful thing they have, and so they protect them, a tremendous amount of protection. So a little bitty outfit like Argentina says, if we take out a British destroyer, the Argentine Air Force consisted of 2 airplanes. Why they decided to go to war with Great Britain is beyond me. I guess they thought, well, they'll never make it to Grenada, or they'll never find out where it's at. Wrong. And so this guy, anyway, he said, all right, what his plan was, he had memorized the signatures of all of the British destroyers. What would they look like on radar? And so he flew along the coast so that he was below radar detection. And the folks in the Harriers didn't think anybody in Argentina would be smart enough to fly right at the wave level of the water, where the water's licking up on the guy's wings. They're not that smart. And so instead of deploying their radar, they cut it off at about maybe half of a mountain range. So this guy would fly, and at random intervals, he'd pop up and take a peek. Well, one day he popped up, took a peek, and there it was, big as life, twice as ugly. On his screen was a destroyer signature. The Mirage jet had a rocket. I think they used the Exocet rocket at that point, and it was a fire and forget system. It saw that, it was programmed, it saw the signature. He probably got a buzz, a bell, something. He pressed the trigger, and it's a fire and forget. He takes off, and it's headed there, and it took out a carrier. And the only thing, it was signature. That was what he went on. You're going to be in the same situation when you're out working and running a company. You've got to be able to look for patterns and see patterns in data. Well, we've looked at this, and again, as you go through chapter 11, if you wish to, the practice files go step by step. They're going to walk you through designing forms, putting in logos, all of that business. And I think it's fine, but frankly, you're not going out to work to design forms. You're going to be going out to work to make decisions. But seeing this and understanding how the form helps with the input of the data, and understanding things like making sure that tables are constructed properly, you're in a better position to have a discussion with the IT people or your vendor if you're getting stuff that you don't like or you can't use. Now, I'm going to go back to the garden company, and here we are again, and we can see the star configuration. Now let's go ahead and let's exit that, and we'll click on Database Tools again. And this time we're going to click on Object Dependencies. Question.
So my computer doesn't have it in a star. It has it.
Okay. You'll have to take it and move it around and configure it around like I did. Yeah. Is that? Let me go back and I'll show you. I'm sorry, guys. Pardon me, folks. I had manipulated these out, and you always, when you're doing this, so you kind of get the pattern. You always put the production table in the middle, or the transaction table. That's how you know if it's a star schema, or what people will call like maybe a snowflake. Yeah, so I'm just moving. I'm going to put it, and I'm just going to start to manipulate. And you can do that with your cursor. Yeah, I'm sorry. Pardon me. That's the nice thing about the graphic user interface on here. Now, chances are you'll see it in Access, but you'll never see this again because you won't be working at that level. But it will be arranged for you depending on your report level, your security access, your job in the company. Okay? So you'll have a dashboard of some type. Okay, now I'm going to close this off. And I'm going to click Database Tools, and I'm going to click Object Dependencies. And you'll see on the right-hand side the Object Dependencies output box. You say, why do I care about this? Well, this gives me a sense of the flow. And so when I click on an object, I'm on the production, the products subform, objects that depend on me, objects that I depend upon. I could click over here on the sales by category, and I could click for the object dependencies. This lets me get a sense of the trail of the data. Follow me? Now, you probably will never be involved with a tool like this. It's somewhat like the tool in Excel that lets you go back and troubleshoot on formulas. I doubt that you'll ever work at this level, but you will be thinking at this level. And when you're out there at work, and you say, okay, I've got this report and it just makes no sense. So the IT people or your vendor will walk back and start to walk back to, what does this depend upon? Where did it come from? And find the source, or find if there was a problem along the way. But this helps you understand, the flow of the data. You'll probably be involved in this more on a conceptual level, where you may sit down and have a discussion about, we're not happy with the reports we get. How can we make them better? And that's when probably somebody in IT will sit down and say, well, here are the tables that we collect the data. Here's how we collect the data that goes into the tables, the forms. Okay? And on and on. Now, I want to take just a few minutes to talk about the cascade, but this is a nice little display here. And that cascade is it's access case number 4. This is one of my old cases. Okay, and I'll just show you what we're looking at here. I'll open it up. Okay. Now let's take a look at this. I've got the cascade table, and we'll go into the design view of it. And you'll see this is a pharmacy. We've got the date, the drug code, the drug name, the supplier, the tabs, and the milligrams per tab. So far, so good. Look at the date, And you'll see as we go down to the field properties, the data is required. We even notice, if you look at the field properties, we have a format and we have an input mask so that the data is entered in a uniform fashion. Okay? Now, you'll notice here I've got required, yes. Index, no. I don't have enough data here really to index it. So I probably would put, no, if it's 1,000 cases, 5,000 cases, 10,000 records, excuse me, I'm wanting index. And when you go to work, you'll probably be working with an index database, depending on how old the company is, how many customers they have, etc. Now, I want to click on the drug code, and I've got the field size, the format, and notice again here, required, yes. Allow zero length, no. We've talked about zero length, the scourge of the null data. If it ain't a zero, I don't want it blank. I don't want blank fields. Then I have anomalies. So I put allow zero length, no. Do I allow duplicates? Yes. Because I'm going to be using different, I'm going to have different, I might have the same drug code, but it's produced by different companies, for example. Then I'm going to have the drug name. Okay. And the name is required. Zero length, no. Now this case is it's a fairly interesting case. It's an old case. But the folks at pharmacies, because of things like the opioid epidemic, Elvis Presley and his doctor or pharmacist, Michael Jackson and his pharmacist, they are really under scrutiny in terms of what they dispense, how often, and to whom. So this case is one of these where the government's tracking certain types of medications. For example, I've got allergies, so I buy Claritin. I don't think I look like a meth dealer, but I can only buy Claritin every 15 days. Otherwise, I might become a drug lord. But it's the state of Oklahoma want to make sure that you don't have a bunch of 13-year-olds run around 25 CVSs and mix up a batch of meth, because they used to do that. Other kinds of products that were, especially for allergies, had ingredients that they could use to make meth. Now you've got the opioid thing going on. And so these pharmacies are very, very careful, especially with some of those drugs that they consider habit forming. They will make people produce their driver's license and sign a little screen that says, yes, I'm not a criminal. I don't intend to distribute this. These 3 pills may make me $1 billion sometime in heaven. So, if I can drug deal in heaven, which I don't think will happen. But the whole point is they're under an onus to track the sale of this stuff. And they want to make sure things don't fall through the code. So now all of the database, Walgreens, CVS, all these big pharmaceutical companies, well, anybody who's in the pharmacy business is sending in daily reports into the federal government. I guarantee you. What really got their attention was when Michael Jackson was getting stuff that you use for surgeries to knock himself out. Pain. It was, and why in the world someone would do that, sell it to him, is just off the chart. But he had severe injuries from his work, and so his pharmacist, I think, was trying to take care of him. But you get too much of a sedative and you're down, and you don't come back. I think if I'm not mistaken, when they looked at what happened with Prince, his death as well. Very, very talented artist, incredibly talented person. He had pain. He had been hurt. So they're monitoring this stuff. Elvis was he was the first one. I remember reading some of the transcripts, and I couldn't believe, how did he stay alive? He would take like 10 Percocets a day. I mean, that's enough stuff to stop a horse. Okay? So he was deeply, deeply. So these kinds of things, as they've occurred, has really forced the government just to make people report this. And on the other side, the manufacturers have to send reports to the federal government, and the feds match up what they sold to Walgreens with what Walgreens says they have in inventory and what they've sold. And if they don't match, there's something wrong. And about every 2 or 3 years, you'll read about somebody either at CVS or Walgreens who was the manager who decided they'd dispense some drugs on the side, and they get caught. And they go to jail for a long time, unfortunately. Well, we've got the drug name, we've got the supplier, we've got the tabs and milligrams per tab. So we kind of have a small table, and we have a fact table, the milligrams per tabs and the tabs. And we have basically a dimension table where we have the date. The date would be a part of a fact. So we kind of have a combination table here. Let's go back up top and take a look. And here it is. And so now you could say, all right, if I wanted to look, for example, how many milligrams I've dispensed, it's simple. I take tabs times milligrams per tab. Now, if I've got 1,000 or 5,000 of these, I would probably rather do a drag and drop on this jewel, or I can do the database and then export the data. So let's look at this task number 1, this query, okay, and we've got the milligrams per tab. And if we go down and look in the design, I bet you this is probably going to be the drugs that the government is either interested in or not interested in. And you'll see them here in the bottom. See the criteria? We use the drug codes. You see it? Yeah, and I was mentioning also about the dispensing. Even now, physicians are monitored heavily about their drug usage. In fact, I would bet you that, like the physicians across the street over there, I bet they get drug tested 3 or 4 times a year for different types of things. Probably as a condition of employment. As a doctor, you can walk in and just take the stuff off the shelf. And if you're like me, I really don't want my surgeon to be high the day that I'm being operated on. I want them to have a clear head. And if they don't have a clear head, find me somebody else. So they have also nurses, same story. Anybody, it's just, and especially with the opioid, that thing is just awful. Well, you can see here, these are either drugs they want to monitor or they don't. If they don't want to monitor them, we filter out. My hunch is these are drugs that we want to monitor. And then here's task 2. And we have the task, and this time we have used an operation or an expression. Let's go down to the design view and we'll see it. Okay? Now, I'm going to come down here and I've got the total usage, and I'll just go ahead and let's see, I want to get that. And it's going to be the total usage, it's going to be the milligrams per tab. Come back down here. Oh, I want the task 1. Silly man, folks. Now, when I scroll over here, there we go. I've got the milligrams per tab. Was it task 2 where I had that? Well, if I want to go ahead and create the operation, it's simple. I could have something like this. I could put in total milligrams dispersed, and I would take the tabs times the milligrams per tab. And I want to find that there for you if I possibly can. And I'm just going to close this off and start with a clean sheet. Here we are. And I'll copy that. And then I'm going to go up here and throw it on that little yellow. Well, there it is already. I've done it earlier. Here's the expression. It's total usage, okay? And then we have the colon, and that's tabs. We have to spell the name of the field exactly as it is in the table that we're using inside of brackets times milligrams per tab. And that gives us the total usage. You say, why wouldn't I just take this and throw it out into Excel and get that? You could. You could do the prep work here if you want, and then throw it out to Excel to go ahead and get your summary statistics, put it into visualize it, etc. Okay? The final piece on this one. Now, by the way, you can put Garden 11 up there, or this case today for access for your workshop credit down for access down. We're ahead, as you know. And let's take a look at this report real quickly. Now, you've heard me whine and cry about Access's report. When you're dealing with 3 or 4 columns, you're okay. When you start to get beyond that, you start to get a jumbled mess. So my advice to you would be rejoice that when you do a report out in the real world and you're working for somebody, they'll have a report feature. It'll give you beautiful reports. SAS Visual Analytics is the top of the line. Now, I doubt that there will be anyone who will do this. Maybe you will. I hope so. I'm going to take you out to Teradata University Network for just a second. Maybe that's part. I forget if I had to have you guys do this in here or not. And you can register as a student, okay? And the password is analytics. They will show you all of the top of the line industry products that are out there. They have a certification program that if you went through it, would be a pretty impressive thing to have on your resume to give to an employer. But if you want to see these products, you want to see some fascinating stuff like what's going on with sports analytics, etc. It just absolutely totally blows my mind. I'm still I'm still digesting the bat speed thing. I'm a baseball fan. And so now they clock the bat speed and they look at the distance and all that kind of, go, Bryce Harper, the other night, man, it was 119 miles an hour off his bat. That's smoking. And it traveled 500 feet. So you look at that and you go, okay. Then as you listen to these commentators, when I was growing up listening to baseball on radio, then it went to TV. You'd have the play-by-play, and then you had the color guy. And the color guy was usually a retired baseball player who told stories about getting drunk the night before he played the World Series, or said, well, it's about time for a refreshing fall staff. Let's grab one. Sold products. Today, they're nothing but a machine spewing out, well, this is so-and-so, and when the full moon is in, and there's 2 men on base, and he's in this city, and he's using this bat, and he's against this team, he bats about 290. And you're sitting there thinking, and I don't even know what major league managers, how they even cope with all of that data. And now they're starting to get fielding data as well. All these analytics, same thing in football. Every professional sport, they have these unbelievable analytics. And this Terra Data University will walk you through some of the newest stuff, and it's just absolutely wild. The people who are not really in touch with this will ask themselves, how can somebody like a Bryce Harper or a Kershaw, a pitcher, how can they be so good so long? We're going to see, by the time you're my age, you're going to see people playing major league sports. I don't know about the collision sports like NFL football. I think no, maybe depending on equipment. NBA, I think you're going to see NBA players playing into their 50s and 60s. I think you're going to see baseball players playing in their 70s because of the conditioning, the food, the training, and the analytics. You know, like a pitcher, well, you have starting pitchers, you have long relievers, short relievers, closers, guys that throw 100-mile-an-hour sliders, and all of it's based on analytics because they'll break themselves down in the film. So when these teams get ready to play each other, if they played each other enough, they're in the same division, they kind of get a feeling. Pitchers will know, they'll learn. They spend a lot of time studying, but they also spend a lot of time with film, especially hitters. And interestingly enough, one of the first hitters to ever really use analytics or use that type of tool was the great Ted Williams, the last person to hit 400. Ted Williams was in World War II and Korea. He lost 6 or 7 years of his career and still had one of the highest batting averages ever. And he was the last person to hit 400. But the thing that he did was he made hitting a science. He took film. He would have people filming during game time to see, and then he'd break that down. He went to the people in Hollywood and said, can you put this in slow motion for me so I can slice it down and see it as I hit the ball? Well, probably the baseball team here has probably got that kind of capability too. So all these kinds of tools are out here. Great tools for management. Well, so you can see the report there. I think you've heard me whine enough about it. You could do some putzing around with the reports, but the reports that you'll get out of some of the commercial products out there are just fantastic. So I don't feel it's worthwhile to spend too much time with Access reports. I just don't think it's a good use of your time. Let me stop. Anybody have a question I could try to help you with? Anybody? Yes? No? Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop the share then. We'll stop this, and I think we covered the material we need to today. Let me take a gander for a moment. We'll talk about what's due. I'll slip down over here back to the dashboard. See, I even have my own dashboard. It's interesting about the analytics. I got an email today from the athletic department. And I won't tell you who the student was or the sport. But it was a coach wanted to know how that student was doing. And I was able to write him back and say, no missed assignments, good average scores, and this person, based on page views and login data, is above average in terms of participation. It records everything. I've taken 2 courses now on Canvas Analytics, and it's incredible. And I like it because it takes a lot of the guesswork. So when I have a person come to me and they're flunking the course and they go, I don't understand. And I look back and they've viewed 12 pages and they haven't spent an hour in Canvas, and they have about 12 missing assignments. Now I've had a few of those. It's a cold shower when I send them the data. And it's also something that I monitor for myself. I look at I have what I call an S&S factor. So what are you talking about? Okay, I look at two factors, 2 analytics: submissions and success. And so I like to see the percentage of submissions I have and the success rate, okay? And then I can break it down into grade levels, who made A's, B's, etc. And it's for me, it's a great tool because it helps me monitor. My next step will be when I have people who aren't really showing up or doing what they need to do, it'll alert me because I have to check it by hand now. And I'll start sending them nagware saying, why haven't you come to see me at class? What's wrong with you? All right. So far, you guys have been really good. I've been amazed. I'll say this. I'm jinxing myself. I know I am. This semester, these two classes, these two sections I have of 1123 have a higher attendance rate than my last full ground-based class. And attendance, of course, is you're here live and or you view the video before noon the next day. I'm okay with that. I'm very okay with that. So I think that's probably why I saw some good test scores this time. Folks, thank you much. No questions. I'm going to get us out of here and have a good one. And I will have those videos for you uploaded on Tuesday so you can see them at will, or the one for both sections.